Hello my little learners, you can call me Lovegood and I hope you enjoy this video. Here are just a few things before we get started. Today, I'm presenting you Bite Me by CloudsinHead on AO3. This can be read as a sequel to No Bark or Bite, but can you please give me a warning next time? This one-shot I've been planning to record for a while since someone told me there was a sequel. And I'm doing it now, both because I'm finally got time to do it, and the first version of this, the prequel, hit 10k views, which is insane, and I don't know what to do with that information, except be in shock. And also because MHA's last episode, episode 11 of season 8, has aired today, the 13th of December 2025. So, with all that in mind, thank you so much CloudsinHead for letting me podfic this, if you ever somehow find this. I apologise if my voice acting is bad, I'm trying to improve as much as I can. But anyways, thank you for tuning in to listen to me, but that's enough of my rambles and jambles, and let's get right into the fic. This is the summary. Summary. Another day, another time Class 1A gets attacked by the LOV. Really, they should have expected this. And the villain should have expected feral Midoriya more. Now, he even has his teacher's permission. Can be read as a standalone or as a continuation of my previous work, No Bark or Bite, but can you please give me a warning next time? Title and parts of the work inspired by murder drones. Author notes. Chapter warnings, gore, ripping out of organs, it's not that bad, fighting and violence. Let's go right into the fic. It had simply started out like almost any other outing with the class, and also ended like almost any other outing with the class. They were outside the dorms, out shopping in a nearby mall to replenish their snacks back in the dorms. Midoriya was originally the only one supposed to go, but that had quickly been discarded. Instead of Midoriya going alone, now there was Uraraka, Todoroki, Shinso, Bakugo and Aizawa with him. After all, he can't be left alone, or else he would attract villains and, one way or another, end up in the hospital. Again. And also, Todoroki was paying. Anyway, that's how they ended up in this situation. What's the situation exactly? Well, the group was simply walking through a park, lazily enjoying the last few rays of sunshine while the sun went down. Aizawa was slowly walking behind them, keeping an eye on them and the surroundings, but not close enough to intrude on their private chats. He totally didn't want to know what was going on between Ida and that Hatsume girl from support course. Not at all. So, they were simply enjoying a walk when, to absolutely no one's surprise, a very familiar portal opened. Great. Now, they were caught up fighting at least half of the villains of the LOV. Todoroki was busy with Darby, Uraraka being attacked by Toga, Mr. Compress distracting Aizawa so he couldn't help the kids, Spinner was attempting to beat Bakugo into a pulp, but simply got handed off to Shinso, who defeated him with a simple, "Who the fuck is Stain?" Shigaraki, of no one's surprise, was left to Midoriya and Bakugo, now that he was no longer busy. Even with literal bombs and superpowers strong enough to eradicate the city, they were outpowered since Shigaraki had also released Nomas on them. They were far too outnumbered on that front, and Shigaraki sometimes also just disintegrated the ground to make them trip or slip up. Quite bothersome, especially now that Eraserhead couldn't help out. Midoriya ducked under a dusty swipe, and Bakugo exploded another Nomu's chest, the creature falling onto the ground limply. It looked dead, but one could hear the disgusting sound of muscles regenerating. Distracted by two Nomus that were still alive, Midoriya didn't notice Dusty Arsehole sneaking up behind him, only realizing when he felt a slight touch and the feeling of pain in his back. Turning around with a hand lifting to punch, he got hit straight into the chest with a piece of debris that immediately turned into dust upon touching the ground, but still knocked him back a bit and onto the ground. The villain took advantage of this and quickly pinned him with his shoe, reaching out to dust the student, only stopped by glowing red eyes, barely keeping up. The greenette struggled, pushing the villain's leg, but couldn't truly do anything, considering he was far from biting distance and his pant leg protected the soft skin underneath. So he vaguely gave up, thumping somewhat against the ground, his head pounding, and a red liquid was muddling his vision. Shigaraki laughed, screeching something about coming prepared this time and not letting the feral child get to him again. Bakugo was still busy with all the other Nomu, now on his own. Blood was seeping from a cut across his left brow, and he screamed in anger, blasting one of the Nomu, then another. Finally, seeing how Midoriya had somehow probably given up, he yells again. "You idiot!" Bakugo rages, explosions popping from his hands. "Don't you always say to do your best? So where's yours, huh? Too weak to protect your own friends? I bet they're all so happy about being killed because you were simply too scared to be yourself." Like this, Bakugo sounded like a terrible motivation coach. It seemed to work, though. Midoriya, still pinned beneath Shigaraki's shoe while the mentioned villain was simply monologuing, was unmoved for the majority of the very heartfelt speech, only staring up at the villain, expression unreadable and arms limply on the ground at his side. That was until the end of the speech. His green eyes widened and he suddenly looked very startled, looking around him. He couldn't see a majority of the fights, and so couldn't see the condition of his friends, but he could hear them. Tired panting from Uraraka's direction, Todoroki's body hitting the concrete in an effort to dodge the blue fire. Shinso helping Eraserhead out, even though he was less experienced than all of them. His expression darkened and a snarl pulled on his lips. In one moment, he was lying on the ground, hands stretching up. In the next, Shigaraki was blasted away, and Midoriya was further away, looking away from the S-ranked villain towards where some of his friends were fighting. He looked furious, and not just at Bakugo. His hands clenched his sleeves while he scanned the half-destroyed grounds of the once park, his friends fighting for not only their lives, but also those of nearby civilians caught in the crossfire. He growled, eye-twitching and unruly green hair falling over his face, but he seemed to be holding back for some reason, simply standing but not doing anything. Eraserhead was thumped against the wall for a moment, distracted by the scene, ready to stop the dusty villain's quirk. Knowing what was about to happen, he called out, "Do it!" to his pseudo-son, before fighting the other villains once again, knowing he wasn't needed from this point onwards. And Midoriya changes. A grin creeps onto his face, arms held up in front of his chest, fingers flexing, posture slumping. His head falls oddly to his side, as if it were too heavy for him to hold. Black Whip emerges from his back, 3 of them to be exact, the tendrils slowly moving around, almost lazily despite the situation. Nobody is quite sure how to describe it, except for slightly animalistic. It's as if the boy had dismissed all of his humanly parts and exchanged them for predatory animal minds, and also some monster creature parts, probably. He giggles. "This is on you." The greenette's voice sounds weird, to say the least. Slightly broken, monotone sentences with a hint of insanity and joy of all things. It seemed excited. Midoriya, or whatever he is right now, slowly turns his head, eyes glinting oddly green for a moment as if they're glowing in the dark of sunset. His mouth is opened in a bright grin, teeth weirdly sharp. Finally, the villain turns into action again. He had been monumentally frozen by the sudden change, but he was here to win. He had been so close to it anyway. Shigaraki gives a small sign to Mr. Compress, and so he throws out his marbles, Kurogiri opening a portal in front of them, teleporting them behind Bakugo so that they flew towards the blonde. Unfortunately for the villains, Midoriya acted first, snatching Bakugo with Black Whip and bringing him into the air at lightning-fast speeds. Then, in the same movement, he throws him simply towards one of the buildings, resulting in a loud bang as the student hits the walls. He wasn't terribly harmed, Midoriya wouldn't let that happen, but he was still bruised. Uraraka gasped, almost yelling out for Midoriya to be more careful, but Shinso covers her mouth quickly, eyes wide open. Bakugo wasn't surprised at all, nor offended. He simply kept watching, eyes tracking the creature that was once Midoriya. Midoriya, who was now stepping towards Shigaraki, arms limply at his sides, tendrils of Black Whip occasionally piercing any Nomus that were planning to attack him. Midoriya giggles once again, letting smoke screen free, the eerily dark colour misting up the area. It was hard to see, but one could still faintly make out his dark form in the thick fog. With Black Whip occasionally moving about, he looked like an eldritch entity, one with surprisingly glowy green eyes. Shigaraki sucked in a panicked breath, recognizing the being as the same one from the USJ incident, though this time it seemed it had escalated far too much. The white-haired villain, down to only 2 Nomus, sent both of them after the young student with a bark of a command, while at the same time fighting off an incoming Bakugo who had recovered already. And the fight begins once again. The flying one of the Nomus reached out with its talons, swiping at the student's head. He ducked easily, crouching down low just in time to greet the other Nomu, a large dog-shaped Nomu, if dogs didn't have heads. He greeted that Nomu by leaping right towards it, stopping it in its tracks and knocking it back slightly. The two wrestled on the ground, no one sure which limb was whose, but Midoriya easily ended up on top, barely looking as if he had broken a sweat. The Nomu, however, was in a completely different condition, panting and bleeding from various wounds. It really did look like a wounded dog now, but Midoriya was not merciful. He laughed and scratched at its chest repeatedly, taking off more and more of the outer skin, digging into the flesh and ripping it out. He looked positively delighted, cackling and all. The Nomu's regeneration could barely keep up, but it didn't have to for long, because, with one sharp bark of laughter, he grabbed the being's heart, exposed due to his scratching, and pulled, crimson red spilling from Midoriya's hands while the dark blue creature stilled once and for all. Tossing aside the organ, he looked up simply, still in his awkward crouch over the body. The winged Nomu screeches, turning around in the air and going for another swipe, which Midoriya simply stops by using all 3 of his black whip to bind it and slam it against the ground. It stood no chance. He released another wave of smokescreen, advancing the still fighting Bakugo and Shigaraki in his lazy slouch again. The blonde one of them immediately jumped away once he noticed the approach, allowing Shigaraki to finally see what had happened in the last few minutes. His eyes widened, and something in him immediately prayed to everything that he would survive this encounter with at least a few of his organs left. Watching a child approach you on, with blood-coated hands and a wide laugh on his face, well, who could blame him? Not to mention how his last experience with that child had gone, so obviously he knew how to defend himself in this case. "Kurogiri!" he screeched, but it was far too late. The child crouched, tapping his fingers on the cracked concrete with a tilted head, pounced, and the fight didn't last long. Kurogiri had, luckily for everyone, already teleported away most of the LOV beforehand in case the child goes feral TM again, so all of the other heroes and students were free now, watching the scene in both horror and glee. Kurogiri himself hovered nearby, attempting to peel the child off of his ward, but with minimal success. The green-haired child only sobbed, using the sobbing Shigaraki as a chewing bone when Bakugo picked him up by the back of his shirt like a kitten and then handed him off to a weirdly proud-looking Eraserhead. They looked each other in the eye, and Eraserhead pretended to wipe away a lone tear. "Good job, my feral child." Midoriya nodded as if this was completely normal and passed out in his teacher's arms, chest rumbling in a noise that can only be explained as purring. The shopping bags were sadly mostly ruined, but Todoroki was grateful to be able to waste more of his father's money. A successful day after all. Alrighty, my little learners, that's a wrap of this one. So, another feral Izuku fic. Gah, this crate is amazing for them. He ripped out a Nomu's heart, which, god I am. I don't... Jeez, you know? So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did, because I love feral Izuku, and also the slight Dadzawa in there was cute. And again, thank you for 10k views on my last, the prequel to this, and I will definitely be crying at the last MHA up. So, my little learners, this is a little reminder you might have something you need to do or check. I hope you all have a fantastic time, wherever and whenever you may be. Day, night, dusk, dawn, low tide, high tide, whatever it is for you. You can call me Lovegood, and that was Bite Me by CloudsinHead on AO3. Again, the link to this fic will be in the pinned comment by me in this video, and tags are in the description as well as warnings. Bye, little learners.